is huge. Yeah, I've got low latency mode on. Let's see. Okay. Why is that? Okay, let's double check then. Is this still being a shit? Hmm. Okay, if I stop this, see if it will end gracefully. Hmm. Let's see if this will this die? Okay. Now let's try it again. I wonder if, oh yeah, I guess let's check the other outputs here. Let's see. Testing on X. Let's see, can I hear myself? Well, that's very weird. Sending data. Okay, let's see. Alright, now let's go back over here. That's very weird. Okay, I guess I'm just gonna have to live with it. That's unfortunate. Oh well, what are you gonna do, right?
Hey, GM, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. Thanks for stopping by. I'm so happy to
Okay,
have
let's
you.
see.
It's so cool that you said yes. I mean, I met you, I'm not sure, a couple weeks back in a space.
Alright, now let's
And yeah, you're just so I'm happy you're here.
Of course. No, thank you. I'm always happy to talk about the things I'm passionate about, blockchain
Oh
being
yeah,
one of them.
yeah. And I really realize that. That's why I'm like, oh gosh, this dude is smart. He's passionate. I need him. I need to talk to him. This is really great. So yeah, we have a couple of questions. I don't know that much about the blockchain, but I'm super interested. And I'm just interested in all these technologies, right? I'm deep into AI. Yeah, and I just want to learn a little bit more about everything that yeah, AI can do. And also, I don't know how else to say it. It's just a great time to be alive. So I would say we'll just give it another minute or two. So for everyone that's already here, if you guys have any questions, you can request the mic if you want to, if you have anything to add to the conversation. You can also leave a comment below, right? You can the purple pill down there if you have any questions and you just don't want to come up and speak. Feel free to just drop them in the comments. Yeah, and we'll hopefully, I hope I won't forget to get to them because sometimes being a host and doing all those things is really, it's sometimes challenging, but I'm going to do my best today. How have you guys been? How have you been, Brendan? What are you up to? What are you building?
Oh boy, I've got now that the meme mania has kind of died down for a little bit, my inboxes are clearing up from people hitting me up asking me to help them launch some token of some kind, which I definitely don't do. I'm US based, so I don't really play too much in the whole altcoin area. But no, I've been building, outside of the things that I'm working on with NFT now. I've been building on the side an L2, a layer two blockchain, a proprietary blockchain that's tailored for AI and agenic systems, so systems of multiple AI.
Oh gosh, that's cool. Well, we need to do a whole space on that alone. Gosh, you need to tell us about it because that's super interesting. Do you build anything on top of Bitcoin?
Uh,
I
spinning up
don't know.
a little BTC kind of see if I could. And so I did, and I inscribed some just horrible artwork, sub 100K ordinals, and they're just sitting on a wallet somewhere, you know. And then at that point, I was like, all right, well, that was kind of cool, and then set it down. And haven't really played a whole lot over in that ecosystem. But what's happening with stacks and the L2 over there is definitely interesting. It's been put on my list of things that I'll eventually get to.
Oh, that's cool. And what blockchains do you build on? What are you, the NFT?
Is Ethereum based, writing in Solidity smart contracts. Um, so I mean that's anything, any of the L2s that are around, anything you know on like the Optimism stack, Avalanche, C Chain, Base. You know, Coinbase is L2. Anything that uses Solidity is kind of where I like to hang out. I've been doing that the longest. Um, and with NFT now, we actually just last month partnered with Base to launch our sovereignty platform, which is a series of smart contracts that are deployed out on the Base network, and a proprietary kind of CMS flow that can integrate to mainstream media's existing publishing workflow, and allow them the ability to verify and authenticate their media on chain.
Oh my gosh, that's super interesting. Do they really defer? I mean, it's just crazy what's out there. And I mean, people are just so focused on this. I mean, of course, we're right in the middle of a bull market, right? And maybe altcoin season is going to start. So everybody's so focused on that and on these cryptocurrencies and these coins and just making gains. But there's actually cool stuff being built, right? That will do something for us in the future. So I just really want to dive deeper into that. And I'm so interested. It's just really exciting. I love it.
Yeah, I think that the future, you know, is going to be a lot of EVM compatibility, you know, and because we're still all, you know, we're so early, quote unquote, right? There's a lot of still teams and companies that are kind of exploring what the best use case is for them. And then at that point, I think that they'll be able to decide what chain is going to be able to handle that use case the best.
Yeah, that's really cool. So we got a couple people in here. So you guys welcome. I'm so happy to see a couple familiar faces and the people that seem to be interested in this topic. I mean, we have a lot of builders on X. I mean, it's just, I follow so many developers. It's just crazy. I'm not even a developer, but I'm just so interested. I wanted to start to code and do some fun stuff, but I just, gosh, I don't have the time. I was thinking to hold educational spaces on a weekly. The main goal of these weekly spaces is to educate people on technologies, right? That are just what I believe. And yeah, I want to encourage people to open themselves up to learn about them. Because yeah, we play a crucial role too in acting with Brendan. I mean, he's an expert. He's a builder, software engineer, developer. So I don't think there's anyone better to talk to, right? And I'm just so grateful that you're here. Yeah, you're an expert, and I feel that, I hear that. It's just cool. I don't know questions, and sometimes it really takes a while until everybody gets in here. So I don't know. Do you have a hard stop?
Hard stop at 2 hours. So I think as long as we don't run over that, we'll be
Okay,
fine.
cool. Well, that's cool. Great. So I see we have Yikes on stage and Matthew. Welcome. Both of you guys feel free if you want to say anything, you can go ahead and unmute yourself or raise your hand or whatever works for you. Because I know some are on desktop, so I'm not sure if everybody can raise their hand. So go ahead, Matthew.
Great. Thanks, Sharon. Great, guys. Remember from Alex's doing with the clients here in Spain is exactly this. They have just by chance, I suppose. I mean, I'm sitting here coding some already, but they actually have already they have a thing already with blockchain, like a real world trading thing they're doing already. And so the question has already come up about what might we do? What are the possibilities for mixing up in a little bit?
Well, happy to have you. Well, I'm in that boat with you, so I want to know everything about it. Let's see. Many do not have deep technical skills, so we're going to try to keep it as beginner friendly as possible. So please, if you guys don't understand something, just there's no stupid questions. I'm probably going to be asking stupid questions myself along the way. So yeah, I would say let's get into it. So Brendan, my first question.
When the mention of the AI oriented L2 is interesting to me. I guess for our blockchain beginner BTC, L2s are more or less like smaller little chains that are less expensive, that kind of like look at. So I was sort of interested with kind of what your approach on the L2 that your build projects that I'm working with right now that are kind of on a similar pathway, but they both kind of have their own in the context of working with the blockchain or verifying or whatever. So I was curious, kind of, if you're able to share any more details about that.
Yeah, man, no, absolutely. And I appreciate the breakdown on L2s. It's funny, being immersed in this stuff 24/7. It sometimes,
it's easy to
hard.
forget, right?
Yeah, it's easy to forget, and there's so many acronyms that people are unaware of. Is another thing that the L2 is. It's tailored less for, there isn't going to be meme coins that launch and liquidity pools and dexes and all of these different things that are primarily trader focused. A majority of this industry came from or they're here because they want number to go up. But the technology itself is so powerful and can be used so many ways. Individual AI agents and then their user, and essentially incentivize these agents, right? That I guess you could just think of like little helper bots, right? Things. There's a lot going on with DPIN. I know it's another acronym. I'm sorry. It's the decentralized physical infrastructure networks. It's IoT at the end of the day. It's just Web3 IoT, right? But all of those devices that are collecting data and earning you rewards, they're all operating on either Peak Network or IoTex. They're all operating on blockchains, and so in a way to kind of create less friction for the user. You can have a lot of those processes automated using AI agents. And the point of my chain is to make sure that your data as at the end user is abstracted away from all of that, so that there's no way to ever identify, the agents that are talking about you behind your back. They don't actually know who you are.
I suspect we probably have some things we should probably talk about. That sounds like it would
Chat about go down a more technical kind of deep dive on that, because it does get far more.
I can imagine. Yeah, it's an important topic. Well, cool. Yeah, I don't want to derail it too far before and get super nerdy. So I guess I'll pass it back to you, Sharon, if you had any specific questions, kind of from the non-Web3 native, super technical area that we can help with.
Yeah, that's cool. No, I love listening to that stuff all day. I only understand half of it, but it doesn't matter. No, it's cool. See, this is how we come together. I love that. Well, I think we should just start off with a basic question. I mean, what the hell is a blockchain, and how does it work? Maybe you don't have to go too far with it. Maybe just as short as you can. Just explain to us, Brendan, what it is and what it does.
So a blockchain, I like to think about it on like a real high level. Essentially, it's a filing cabinet for all of your receipts that is fireproof and earthquake proof and tamper proof and hack proof, and it does a really good job at holding any sort of data that you would never want to be manipulated, hacked, deleted, any sort of information that you want a permanent record of, is really what the blockchain is for. Again, at a high level, how it works is you have nodes, and nodes you could think about like internet servers, right, on a Web 2 side, and they're all communicating with each other to essentially approve any sort of transaction that goes through, and there's various ways they can do that, based on their consensus, on whether or not, a lot of the time you hear it's just, a majority rule kind of thing. There's other ones that are more so like federated, which means that you essentially designate how many nodes need to approve a transaction in the whole network before it's committed. But ultimately it prevents any single point of failure. So as opposed to like Amazon Web Services or your Google Drive, right, which you have your Gmail, your Google Calendar, your Google Drive, like all of these things. Well, if the Google servers go down, you don't get access to any of it. With a blockchain, you would essentially need the entire, or at least 51% of all of the nodes globally, in which there's thousands, and on the bigger chains tens of thousands of these nodes, you would need them all, 51% of them to go down before you would have an effect on anything. And even then, it would only affect the transactions going forward. And everything else that's already been committed to the chain, again, is there. It's immutable. It's not going to be able to be altered or edited or deleted at any point.
So it's all about security. Am I understanding that right?
I mean, that is, to me, one of the primary fundamental use cases and purposes of blockchain technology is, yes, it's security, it's secure communications, it's having, authentic actions performed and verified, and then also adding that level of accountability, to where, there's a record of every move you make when you're on chain.
Moment, but with the blockchain, so to say, nothing is lost. That's cool. Very important. Go ahead, Yai.
Yeah, to expand on it a little further, I would say that there's like playing devil's advocate. One's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, if Google's servers go down, when was the last time all Google's servers went down? It has happened before. Thank you very much. But the other thing that you have that kind of 51% threshold that you need to hit most of the time for most of consensus mechanisms. But the other thing that is that kind of that consensus sort of enables or makes more of a thing is if 51% of the nodes go down, then yes, the thing could go down or whatever. But if the network as a whole wants to tell somebody no, like if since Google has my Gmail, Google can, if they don't like what I'm doing, say, hey, like your Gmail's gone, you don't have it anymore. They just get to make that decision. But if your communications or whatever data that you've stored on this kind of secure ledger that's always going to have a record, that ledger is not owned by anybody. It's more agreed upon by everybody. And there's various things in place to kind of make sure that that happens. But most of the time, if things are working as intended, the kind of selling point for me with Web3 is that there's no boss. Like, you are your own boss, you are your own bank, and which benefit you get for that is like it gets to be yours, which is kind of the other selling point to me.
Example for all of your receipts. It's like if you went to the store and bought a pair of sneakers, you got them home, they don't fit. You go to bring them back and you don't have your receipt, and the person will give your receipt, and so you can just kind of, hey, can I get this receipt? And there'll always be a copy of it.
That's super interesting. Now, I want to go and you guys were talking about nodes. Now, how does that work? Is it? I'm thinking, is it people like who runs these nodes, and where are these nodes?
So the nodes are, I mean, you can spin them up on your own like machine, realistically on your own computer if you wanted to, and help secure the network. The more nodes that are running all over, the more secure the network is. Again, because ultimately, in order to, use the term loosely, shut it down, right? You would need to cross a threshold of 51% of these nodes, and affect all of them simultaneously. So the more nodes you have, the harder that's going to be for a bad actor. And realistically, again, like you can spin them up on your own machine. On Ethereum, there's a lot of different, like if you absolutely needed internet all the way or downtown just to hop on the internet, the more nodes you have, the more access you have to the blockchain.
To extend the filing cabinet analogy, if there was a list of all of the things in the filing cabinet, a node is one person with one copy of that list, and then all of the people get together. They say, hey, like, this is my list. Is it accurate? If 51% of them agree, then the file cabinet stays what it is.
Oh, that's cool. I'm thinking now, so do we need to focus on maybe setting up a node for any blockchain that we just want to keep alive? Is that the future, that everybody's going to be, having their node. I actually wanted to start with a Bitcoin node, and I'm still going to do it. I just didn't have any time, but I'm definitely going to set something like that up. But I would like to learn a little bit more, because that just gives us also more of an understanding how we play a role in all of this. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. And I don't think that it's really something that like everyone should be running a node. Maybe in the future, across L2s, and now, people are talking layer 3s even, which is just a obscurity. But the different, I guess, consensus algorithms that are happening, with, from going from proof of work to proof of stake, was a huge movement for a lot of chains, because ultimately your node during a proof of work environment, you're actually helping solve this complex math equation ultimately. And if you're the one that solves it, or if your computer is the one that solves that and is able to commit the next block, you would get a mining reward. And those are like the things that like a lot of gas fees ultimately would go to those miners that are helping actually process transactions and put them on chain. With proof of stake, again, it boils down closer to that 50 to 51, percent of everybody agreeing, but then you also get the optimistic rollup, and what they're doing is, or how that works, essentially, is you assume ahead of time that the transactions being that ultimately, it's like if you submit bad transactions, then you get blacklisted from the network. Now your node isn't allowed to essentially operate inside that ecosystem anymore, submit any transactions, things like that. So there's an incentive to make sure that you are being truthful.
Run your own node or not. The running a node itself can, depending on the network, of course, it can be a fairly technical process. So one might think like, oh, if there's not enough nodes on this network, then it might not survive. File cabinet not really being centralized anywhere, is that as long as there's a record of the things that have gone into that file cabinet and everyone can agree, you can always reconstruct that file cabinet. So even if there's only one node, as long as it has all the transactions and at least another person can agree on, I would running a Bitcoin node is like definitely like an interesting technical project to take on. Do this, it can be a little scary because there's a lot of technical stuff going on. But if you see a coin and you kind of like dig into it a little bit, because most of the time, outside of running a node, whatever that network is trying to do, usually it's got thing, and usually it needs your help to do that. And if or did I die?
Yeah, for a moment.
Sucked into the
Short story is usually there's something you can do if depending on your network. I was giving the example of like I was working with a network where I have an old phone and I just signed it up to be a compute provider for more or less like a decentralized AWS. So you don't have to run a node, but there's usually something you can do, and I would suggest doing that so you can kind of get a picture of whether this thing you want to invest in is actually useful, because then you can start using it.
Absolutely, dude. Yeah, and real quick, because I do want to get rid of Matthew, had his hand up, but I pinned up in the top here. It's a website called Kaleido, and for anybody interested in kind of like learning more about the nitty gritty, I guess, of blockchain, Kaleido allows you to spin up your own private chain, right? And it already, I mean, further, a few different options, but ultimately, it's like you don't have to really do anything on your machine as far as coding, command line type techie stuff. That's all very, there's big buttons to do various things, and by setting up your own chain, I mean, I'm personally the type of learner that likes to turn all the knobs and hit all the way to kind of play around with, oh, hey, you can set up more than one node in this virtual environment, and then you can also decide, do you want it to be a federated chain, or do you want it to be, proof of authority or proof of stake, or there's a bunch of different kind of things to explore that might be beneficial to anybody trying to learn more about what each individual aspect of a blockchain does. But go ahead, Matthew. I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, no worries, man. All good. Just sitting here coding prompts and things. Conceptual point of view. When we talk about blockchain and AI, or AI and blockchain, are we saying that there is some way to hook up AI stuff, LLM stuff, directly to blockchain stuff, or are we doing like in some way we're going to make it all work, but there's nothing to do directly there?
Yeah. Without getting too technical, it's more so about identity, various smart contracts, as well as pointers to data that's been verified, authentic, truthful, and less likely to lead to AI hallucinations.
Okay, so you mean okay, so you could be talking about blockchain to anchor AI agents, as it were, and maybe blockchain.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's interesting.
essentially the idea is kind of another way to think about blockchain, or at least like the EVM, which is the virtual machine for Ethereum, is it's a computer. The computer is old and slow and kind of bad, but the computer also doesn't exist. It's everyone's everywhere all at the same time, and the way that we make that computer work is by everybody getting together and agreeing on this ledger, and the filing cabinet, the things that are in the filing cabinet, can basically just be zeros and ones, and the as we hopefully we are technical enough to understand that if it's made out of zeros and ones, then it's probably any form of digital data. And also, the generative AI models, what they do is they produce data. It might be images, it might be audio, it might be time series data, but blockchain can keep a record of data. It can also build kind of an invisible computer that nobody owns for that data to run on. And then the generative AI that is creating data can interface with that kind of middle system in whatever way someone finds it useful to do, essentially.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to. Yeah, I kind of get each of the, say, GPT-4 beyond storing data or something.
Yeah,
I'm working on one right now, actually.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure. No, I'm struggling. Means I haven't got it yet. I'm sure.
Yeah. So do you have a chatbot on your site? Or are you working on a chatbot?
Yeah, we're doing that kind of thing at the minute, and sort of getting to embeddings and stuff, and the contextual side of things, and
Awesome. For like those of us maybe less technical, web development is a thing. There's a thing in web development called React. React is kind of a way that you take the shiny buttons on the front of your site and you hook it in to all of the data on the back end where you can do all these transformations and stuff. So there's some really cool packages for JavaScript, which is what React is written in. Where you can, there's a few called like Ethers.js and WagMe, et cetera, et cetera. You can look into it a little bit more if you're interested. But you can do something like when I go to your chatbot, my MetaMask pops up, and so I don't have to give you like my Google information or any of my personal information. I can just sign in with my wallet. And then instead of needing to go through a payment processor or like PayPal to sign up to your chatbot, you can just like post a transaction and say like once this transaction is executed, you can now you can talk to my chatbot. And then you can ask the person's MetaMask to sign that transaction, and then that transaction to my wallet, and now I've just kind of paid for your chatbot without having to sign up. There's a use case for you.
right. But that's sort of authentication and payment, right? Which people are doing. I mean, and not to knock what you're saying, because I know people are doing that already for sites generally, right? You can use MetaMask and blockchains for authentication and of course for payment as an alternate to fiat. But I mean, like, so in that case, don't get me wrong. Please don't misinterpret what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
so the that's authentication and payments, which is cool. But we're authenticating and paying to use a chatbot versus authenticating and paying to access content, say.
Yeah, I think it's less about the payment rails really, and it's
Yeah.
more so about the protection of the data. So like the exact same use case that Yikes was just saying.
Yeah.
Only instead you sign your signature with your wallet, who you are the only owner of, and at the end of the day is a 64 character hexadecimal value, right? OXO, whatever,
Yeah.
your actual address. By using ECDSA signatures or Merkle proofs, or however, you can grant access to, and anything you give it will also be piped to that private database that's only accessible by the agent mapped to your wallet address. And that's how we keep company data from ending up in the OpenAI servers, and it's how we keep your personal information personal.
Okay.
That's super interesting. Sorry, my little chihuahua's in the back. He's protecting something. I don't know what yet. But anyways, that's super interesting. Now I'm thinking, you know, with all these robots and these autonomous cars and stuff like that, I mean, blockchain is also going to be very something. Is that how it's going to look? Because, you know, you're not going to have a person sitting in there, you know, pulling out his wallet and paying with his credit card. So is that something that's going to be part of it, going to play a huge role?
So
yeah,
that one's
so that's totally yeah, I was gonna say that one's totally possible, but it's more it gets very technical and more complex because you're now merging a few different systems, you know, and again, I think that's why the blockchain is so powerful, because as long as you're staying within, you know, like we'll just use the EVM, you know, for an example, as long as you are sticking within, will be the same, or at least the same structure. You know, the smart contract of, you know, of events that are like kind of just messages, right, that happen after certain things get done on a smart contract, you know, they can be read and interpreted by that EVM, and so therefore any chain that uses the EVM will be able to understand those messages. You know, with the gas thing, you know, that's where, you know, in your car, and you earn tokens, native, you know, Hive Mapper tokens, for just driving around. And what you're actually doing is providing more accurate map data in real time than you would from a single Google car driving around trying to map the streets. If you have 10,000 people in a city all using Hive Mapper, you're going to get much more accurate, up-to-date data as far as what roads are still here. Is this a frontage road because he was following his Google Map directions and wanted to avoid traffic? You know, by using things like Hive Mapper, you know, that data becomes super valuable to, I mean, Mapbox, you know, Google Maps, Waze, any of these map providers. And so by earning those tokens, right, essentially, you know, you can look at that like, yes, you're earning gas money, right? But because you can't just system of multiple AI agents, each given a particular task to do, you know, and so if you're operating on, you know, this platform and you have a MEV agent, you know, or a minimum or a maximum extracted value agent, you know, at any point you could have that agent constantly crawling and looking at, you know, knows you're running low on gas. It could take some of those Hive tokens, convert them to USDC, send it over to your Coinbase account, and now you can pay at the pump with your Coinbase card using USDC, and you just earned that gas money by driving the car that you need to fill, all without a human really having to interact because of the agents just doing the jobs that they're assigned to via their role.
Yeah, I think that's like several different technologies. I I pull out my phone, I indicate somehow that I want to go somewhere. A car shows up, there's nobody driving it. I get in, I get out, the car drives away. Everything about that is paid for and signed and good to go. And I'm pulling the map data from everyone else. I'm not relying on Stripe to book the Uber. I'm posting my trip that I want to take as a transaction that everybody can read, everybody can see, anybody can process. And the same goes for the map data. You're creating that valuable data, and the place that you're putting it is everywhere. So you don't Google to know like what trip I'm taking to where. Like I have, if I can use like these decentralized systems and then data transformations in between in order to just do that, like myself. And that kind of sovereignty, for lack of a better word, can be really helpful in contexts of doing things like AI agents, or if a company like Uber starts like kind of like messing with their drivers, which they often do, you can just like sidestep that and be like, hey, like there's like it's not Uber, it's just you and me and your car, and we are all on chain on transactions, and that's how it's working. So that's kind of another angle to think about there, I guess.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. This just has me, I don't even know what's going on in my head right now. I'm just thinking about the Jetsons 2.0. It's just crazy, because if you think about all this information and access to data and moving data, how that can also improve us as a society, how we move, how we interact, what we do, because if all of that, I mean, a lot of people, there are two sides to this, because we're also talking about security and privacy and all of that. But just think about if all this data can just be shared with everyone, and how, and these AI systems can then improve, just make it more efficient. Does that make sense what I'm saying? I don't know. This is just so fascinating. This is crazy. Just think about that. A world where we're just highly efficient, because the way the technologies are just tracking everything we're doing and the way we're doing it, and then, how much can be improved. And then the beauty of the blockchain is, at that moment, it's not like there's a centralized body that is making these decisions. It's actually just all of us at that moment, because we are, we're kind of adding to that information, and then it's, being advanced. I don't know if that makes sense what I'm saying.
Well, it does. Like we're on a Twitter space right now. Twitter spaces are kind of broken and janky, so we have to wait for Elon to fix it. Or we could just go over to some place like Lens or Blue Sky or Farcaster, and we can just build a better Twitter space. Like we don't have to wait for anybody. We can just do that, because all that information is just sitting there for us to read, and we can do whatever we want with it.
Exactly, and that's kind of what the power in smart contracts is that automation that now you can achieve, and you can have just things operating completely without any user interface. Just when this happens, do this, and then when that happens, do this other thing, and then ultimately at the end, give me a message that says everything's done, and then you have a whole nother system just listening. It's called event stream listening, and they're just listening to this other smart contract, waiting for this message to come through, and as soon as they get it, they go, oh cool, I can start my thing now. And then that kicks off a whole other smart contract that's automatically doing all of these different things, and so I think that the power is really going to be in tying these systems together. And up until realistically recently, with the advancement of L2s and ZKs and rollups, like it was just too gas heavy to realistically do a lot of these use cases that came around back in early 2017, 2018, when Solidity really started to kind of take off. There's a lot of use cases that were like, oh, this would be perfect. But, as a user, I'm not going to spend $10 just to like essentially check in somewhere, or just to do a basic, action. It didn't make any sense. But now that we're at a point where L2s cost less than a penny, per transaction, it's going to be much more feasible to go ahead and tie a lot of these systems together.
Yeah, there's very like the kind of earlier hype cycles with crypto, where it was like largely speculation, was like sort of a blessing and a curse, in that like basically what you were doing at that time was speculating on very immature technology becoming useful in the future. A lot of people got burned by that, and a lot of people also made money by that. And so kind of the narrative shifted to like, oh, that's what it's good for. Well, now these technologies are starting to mature. So like some of these bets are going to start paying off, in that like the things that were kind of pie in the sky ideas to start building around or making happen, like those are possible now. So I'm pretty excited to be like in the space at the time that I am, even though like, at the social zeitgeist is like, oh, it's a crypto thing, it must be some sort of like doggy coin scam. Well, like we've been building the whole time, and we're just about ready. So I'm stoked to see what happens in the near future.
Like I said earlier, it's a good time to be alive. It's just crazy. I just want to go ahead and reset the room. So yeah, we're talking about blockchain and everything that kind of, interconnects with it. If you guys have any questions, you can either leave a comment below. If you want to come up on stage, if you have anything to add to the conversation, anytime, you guys feel free. It's an open discussion, and yeah, we just want to enjoy our time together and learn something. So this has been wonderful so far. I'm so thankful that I started this because I'm learning so much. It's just crazy, and my brain is just, I don't know, my brain is just all over the place now. So you guys were talking about, well, I would like to go kind of in a decentralization, talk a little bit about that, but maybe first smart contracts. That might be interesting to dive a little bit deeper into that so that we understand what that is about.
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, you can think of smart contracts as essentially just like little programs that are running on your computer, right? If the computer is a blockchain, smart contracts are just little programs that are running on them. On anything EVM, they're written in a language called Solidity, which is, just a beefed up version of another language called JavaScript at the end of the day. But what they do is they allow the customization of, something as simple as add these two numbers together and then, give me the answer, which will ultimately, that counts as a transaction, which will then get put on chain. So you'll always have record of the, oh no, I did this math problem at, on Wednesday at 12:50, from my wallet address, here's my signature on it. Like I did this math problem, all the way to a pro data from, storage online, decentrally usually. And so really there's not a limit to what can be done realistically with a smart contract. It's just a matter of how it's going to be best applied and on what network really or chain you wanted to, run it on.
Wow, I'm just thinking, I mean, how many people are actually out there in the Web3 space, blockchain space? I mean, are there enough people to make all of these things happen? I'm just asking myself, because everybody's now, I mean, a lot of people are losing their jobs and stuff, right?
In the audience, who is my fellow partner in crime with Alchemy University. I'm not. I'm a volunteer there. But it's a free coding boot camp. It's where I learned to code at all. I learned like last November. And it's a really, really exciting time to be building, and it's a really exciting time to learn how to build. It's just university.alchemy.com, fairly reputable establishment in the web structures and algorithms, which is kind of really the thing you actually need to learn to start understanding kind of how this stuff works. But yes, there is not
starting this because, people are not even aware of the power that they could have and what they could do. We're all crying around about our McDonald's just can't code, right? But I just want to start somewhere. I want to do something. And, I follow so many developers here because I'm just for us to use it. So I think that there's so much opportunity there, right? And that's what really shapes, everybody needs.
Kind of piggyback on what Yikes was saying, Alchemy they've got a ton of great stuff over there. YouTube, there was a guy I used hardly any of the YouTube.
Yeah, I'm glad I started when I did, but I also hate that I started when I did.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what there's some core fundamental things that I think is really important for anybody that's going into development to learn. And the one thing that I always zero coding experience, like I've never even, customized your MySpace page back in the day, right? Like you know each old dead language. Realistically, at this point, there's not really a whole lot that's done in C++ anymore. However, it teaches you the fundamentals of how the computer thinks and how the computer at the end of the day wants the information, fed to it before it will give you something, and I think that it's fundamental. Yes, we have AI and we have, Copilot and all these awesome tools. Devin just came out, which is crazy. If you understand Latin as a language, even though it's not spoken, I don't write or actively read in Latin, but you know it enough to, at a restaurant, if you know Latin, you could figure out at least roughly what is going on here. I look at C++ the same way. There's so many things that were built on top of C++ because it was one of like any other language significantly easier.
Oh, those are true gems. And yikes, thanks also so much for leaving the that doing. It's just, yeah, it's wonderful. I'm so happy that I signed up to X just I don't know, in May last year or so. I'm like, what the hell was I missing? You know, but I'm here now, so it's never too late to get started. That's really cool. Yeah, so yeah, we learned a lot about how this blockchain technology does this. Definitely because of security and all of that. That's just very important. Are there any challenges?
Adoption. You know, I think at the end of the
Brand,
day.
dude. We have it. The brand, the Web3 brand is so bad right now. Ugh.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's you know, there's so much untrust in this industry because of all of the various scams and what people refer to as hacks, which are actually just of ex Wall Street bets, redditors, you know, and fintech guys that came over because they saw an opportunity for the tech. But that's gonna be our biggest hurdle is convincing your normie friends that like this is worth it, you know, because all they see is like, why would I spend 6 figures on a cartoon monkey knowing that somebody can just rob me at any point? You know, it's like
Most part, or we put some stuff in place where you can sign up with your Google, you can abstract you can have a smart contract.
and you know, it's funny. It's like one of the things that like, cause I'm out here in Colorado, and so I've been going to ETH Denver every year since it started.
Oh,
you
I'm
know,
so jealous, dude.
Yeah, especially last year, you know, with all of the L2s and account abstraction and backpack tokens, and I mean, all of these really cool technical industry are devs and builders, you know, and so they focus so much on the features, you know, of like it's got 10,000 transactions, more on the benefits for the end user and less about the features of the technology. I think that's where we'll start to overcome a lot of the hurdles that we run into anybody else who's also, you know, part of a DeFi or on chain, right? But the exception of being able to send, you know, payments, you know, where's like, how can the blockchain on the weekends they watch football and drink beers with their buddies, and then, you know, one day they repeat the process. You know, it's like at what point would like what's going to benefit them at this point to being on chain, you know, and a benefit that they understand, you know, not a benefit like you can send, you know, borderless payments instantly without any oversight. And it's like they're not doing that.
Right, right.
They don't care that you can, because at the end of the day, nobody cares how an ATM works and all the interbank communications that happen and transfers of funds and T0 settlements. Like, they just want their money. They hit 4 numbers and they get cash. And as soon as we can get to a point with blockchain where that's the end user experience, I think we'll absolutely explode in growth.
I agree completely, and I also got to take off. But yeah, I think yeah, there is. It used to be that you